against one of their Latin American opponents, or if W7M has that fight to bring us back and send us over to Theme Park for map number 3.
Well, we have to get to the ban phase first before we get into the map, so let's do our due diligence here. It's going to be Ying out first, G2 sitting on their offensive ban, but they finally decided what they want to go with. Going to get rid of some execute utility and a little bit more utility, as we have some utility destruction coming in from Flores and more or less getting rid of, actually. So won't be seeing any of those Rotero drones. We'll have to try and deal with that around shields or anything of the sort. Solus also going to follow suit, as she'll be our first defensive ban, as we have seen time and time again, and we'll continue to see throughout the remainder of this tournament. She's just a nuisance. Very, very difficult to deal with, especially for the drone game. And then Smoke is going to be the one wrapping up our defensive bans here from W7M. And actually, funny enough, Smoke, a pretty common ban that people used to love back in the day in Brazil to try and really mix things up. It's still thrown in every once in a while from teams around the world. It's not like W7M going to be doing it here.
It's not really like the earth-shattering ban that it used to be, in my opinion, though, just because of the fact that we have a lot more operators that can do like kind of the same thing that he does. Obviously, that's done in a bit of a different way. You look at operators like Tachanka, and to some extent as well, those Goyo canisters can fulfill a similar role. But obviously, in terms of how specifically it's used, it does work a bit differently, but it still fulfills that same role of delay tactic here. So it's not going to be any huge loss for either team to not have access for the Smoke, in my opinion.
No, I completely agree with you. You know, Smoke is still the best in the business when it comes to delay. He's got the best utility setup, especially with like deployable shield and all that.
Especially when you consider we're on Cafe too, and like Tachanka works really well on this map, specifically for this site. Actually looking at it now too, they didn't bring it for this one obviously, but just for future reference there, this is probably one of his better maps in my opinion.
Absolutely, you can play him right there at the back of bunker and just launch, you know, fire grenades over the top of the soft walls and prevent a lot of different plants from going down. So it was a very solid option. He can also play over inside of coat check as well, which is a nice counter position. The defensive side loves to play, and the offense loves to try and thwart just because of how pivotal it can be. G2 going to start working their way onto the map here of Cafe. W7M going to keep things rolling with some initial tidbits of aggression, but nothing really to call home about. Just more or less looking at things and seeing if they could potentially accomplish something.
The rest of G2 slow rolling here for the first few seconds of the round here. Already quite a few openings being made, though, for some of those hard breach positions, specifically going in towards Freezer. It's a good thing we do have Julio back on the Clash once again here, because that delay specifically over towards the garage entryway and White Stairs might be very much needed with the speed of which G2 is able to clear out some of these positions. Alamal as well. Bring the gridlock into the fold here to try to add some extra blockage once we get deeper into the round itself. You can see the first of those track slingers going to be thrown down over on Whiskey Stairs to prevent any rotates back up there. So sort of a flank watch position being used for that one, but as well, a second one thrown down a few seconds prior to that one too. So it looks like Alamal just trying to set up a little bit of a grid for himself and anyone else that's going to be staying up here on the second floor when the actual site execute happens.
Virtue almost getting blown sky high there as he's on the sledge work for mining as of right now. Going to attempt to spam into bunker, but not going to find too much. That's on to Doki and the rest of the gang as they're going to dispatch W7M in a pretty convincing fashion. Volps now trying to get it back in blood, and he will. Blur will end up picking up Julio, but Volps, my God, man, slowed down as he's already gotten 3, and he could actually win this round, John. Virtue and Blur both extremely low on HP, and also he's Echo. He can reposition these cameras.
Also see what he can potentially work himself towards here. Like you said, the repositioning of those Echo drones is going to be second to none here with his capability to try to win this one out. He's actually going to move both of them now to get them into a better position for when G2 feels the confidence to move forward. That does leave a little bit of a risky situation. The fact that he could have been droned out, but nicely done. Plays it off the audio cue from upstairs, catches Virtue lurking into his corner, and now he's got a health advantage for the final 1v1. Blur is at negative 20 HP here, sub 20 HP, trying to win this one out inside of the 1v1. The crossfire comes dangerously close to making the connection onto Volps. He's also out in the open here, taking the risk on exposing himself to Blur without the full intel, but keep in mind there, you can see it, his teammates on those Echo drones giving out the hard pings, constantly feeding Blur's location over to Volps, so he is not panicking in any sense right now. That all is instead happening over on Blur's side of things. Look at this as well. Nicely played by Volps. Just backs away from the scenario. Just going to play this on the timer unless he knows he has a winning angle. There we go. An ace as well from Volps to shut it down as he single-handedly saves this round.
And that right there is the danger of a Brazilian squad. You give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And that's what Volps does. Dispatches the entirety of G2 single-handedly. Just had to reposition some drones to assist with the info game. That's just how dastardly of a character Echo is as well. I mean, for a long time in his existence, he needed that nerf. He was just so very good because look at what he's capable of. All simply by playing things out properly around his utility is some solid gun work with that MP5 SD. Great round there from Volps, and one we'll definitely call back on in his career.
Excellently played by Volps. He's been one of the few shining stars for W7M inside of this series here. Obviously, we just looked at his stats from map number 1 before we actually dove into this game too. He was on the forefront of all these successful plays from W7M, and once again is the singular forefront of the play for the first round here on this play here. So nicely done from Volps. Excellently worked out here for W7M to keep their composure, keep themselves centered, and more importantly, keep them in front of the charge here with a 1-0 lead over G2 to start out the map. We're going to be moving beyond this, of course, with the site now locked down. It's going to be a reading room fireplace defense. We did that short tech pause, but I believe we're already past it, folks. So getting ourselves back into the game now to see if W7M can give us some more miracles like that.
Do you believe in the Church of Volps, Brazil? We'll have to see. Prayers up. W7M is looking to elongate this series, and it all starts with these little measures, one round at a time. Don't take huge swaths of things. Don't overthink it. One step, and more than likely end up finding your exit. Exactly where you want to go. So for G2, going to be changing some things up here for their offensive perspective. Bench is going to be onto the Nook. Virtue will be providing the air jabs for some flank control. Blur also going to be providing a little bit of dislodgement utility with the firebolts, as well as some smokes to break up some lines of sight. So got everything that they necessarily need to be able to have some fun inside of this round. Volps impacting and looking for drones really there. Didn't really find too much. Could have obviously ran out, but pretty interesting little opening there from him. KZ also going for this spawn peek, so looks like it could have just been some feint pressure over there towards Hell just to try and get them to look the other way while KZ quickly thwarted their initial game plan.
Attacker's bomb diffuser has been dropped.
First kill of the round is going to field itself over to the W7M roster as Herds instead is able to execute onto Blur there. Pretty big pick too when you consider all the utility, of course, that's going to be sitting in the pocket of Capital this early in the round. So all that now completely lost. Benja trying to get another one going here, trying to get at least the first kill for his team this round. Chucking in the nades, trying to scare Volps out of the position. It works to get him out of the position, just can't follow through with the spray, unfortunately. He makes it out just barely with about 20 or so HP to fight later on in the round. Benja will get hit with a bullet or so as well, but he's still in fighting shape there at around 80.
Well, so far for G2, Cafe, a pseudo Rubik's Cube for them. Not able to work it out. Looked like the first round was going to be the one that found them the most success, but we know how Volps wanted that one to play out. So he made his story known. W7M still waiting things out for G2. They're feeling as though this round not really well within their grasp just yet. Want to try and drone some things out and find some extra info on the roam game that's going on around this top floor, and they will successfully do so. Herds right on the other end of this, and he's quickly going to get taken down by Doki. The spatial awareness not there for the audio apparently in that position. Very unfortunate for the W7M member, but they've still somehow been able to manage. He'll take down some G2 players, but KZ now down for the count over inside of Pixel.
Now still hunting through the soft breach panels to see if anything will be presented. The players on W7M, but not able to find them so easily. Starting into quite a chaotic scenario here for the final minute of play. Virtue finally locking down another kill, this time securing one for G2, of course. Bringing it down to Volps, who has still survived all this chaos after what he went through at the beginning of the round here. Just barely now, however, at about 20 or so HP. And Julio alongside of him, looking to step up to the plate here. where he has been struggling to do so throughout the series so far. Will this finally be the time we see him come to bear fruit for himself and the rest of his team? We'll soon find out. With only 30 seconds to go, G2 is not going to have a choice. They'll have to make the descent sooner rather than later. And indeed, they're going to be priming for that now. As Julio tries to dodge out the nade, Alamau with an opportunity there, but misses it. Allows Julio to re-transition through red 90 and then back out into pillars.
Seconds remaining.
G2, the team play working for them, but it's taken them some time to set this up. W7M, they're slowly working their way back into this round. All it takes is one proper kill and the entire thing explodes. Julio gets one, Volps gets the other. The plant has to be stuck by Alamau, and he's more than likely dead. He'll just get off of it. G2, they do their damnedest, John, to try and work together to solve this problem on the mid floor, but W7M do such a bang-up job of avoiding them entirely until the moment arises. They need to poke their head out of the cave and make their play. W7M with the round here on Cafe.
So Bank may have not necessarily seemed like the best place for W7M to try and take things here, but they are lighting themselves up here on Cafe. 2 rounds to none so far against G2 here. That's 2 sites locked down, forcing them to be fair onto their tertiary site now, which is just going to be another second floor hold for themselves as well. This is one of the maps where we do have that kind of shared site between 2 of the site selections, so it's still going to be dining room on the second floor, but of course, instead of the library, it's now going to be over here in the mining room instead on the left side of the map. Just a little bit of a defensive matrix need to be set up to properly adjust for that change up onto this site. G2, of course, is going to be bringing some different operators here as well. The flank watch coming back in onto Virtue specifically there with the Nomad Benja, bringing the Nook back into the fold. This is a very, very big map for this operator when you consider the immediate access the attackers have to those staircases and the potential sneak plays they could go for up to the 2nd or 3rd floor. So we'll see what Benja is able to lurk towards. More intel going to be gained as well through Blur on the Dokkaebi now, trying to get those phone calls out and get better positional intel as to where W7M is playing their mid and late round positions from. Going to be wasting much time for G2 either as we see them go right for that initial first floor control. They realize that W7M probably doesn't have a whole lot built up down here, maybe a player or 2 watching Whiskey Scares or something like that, so they'll keep watching for that. But here we go with Benja, just like we were talking about a moment ago. He's leading the charge. Unfortunately, there's a motion detector sitting on Whiskey, and it gives him away. JV92 catches that on the audio cue, knocks him down, and it's going to be W7M with the first kill.
Big pickups here from W7M. It seems like Bank has lit a fire under them as they're quickly taking it to G2, putting them on their back foot. And it all started with Volps as he had that fire in his belly originally. And that nice ace inside of round 1. This might be the play here. Oh, almost had him with the nitro cell. KZ tries it out on the castle barricade, but doesn't find too much. Nitro cells and frags abound, and it's going to be the frags that win it out. Alamau to take down Herds here as he's playing both angles. Also down into hell in the upside down propel. Just be managing this portion of the building for some time.
They're going to go very quiet once again inside of the mid round here. Has been an often occurrence inside of this series here as both teams inside of that early round oftentimes are just trading blows against each other and then giving themselves the respect to gain intel, whether it's on the defensive or attacker side for the next minute or so after that. Volps losing a lot of HP yet again, but this is a familiar situation for him, and he's still been able to thrive inside of it, so I doubt that's going to affect him too much. G2, in the meanwhile, starting to take some control down at the bottom of White to make their own ascent here as we reach the final minute of play. The nade goes in. JV92, too deep, too close to the door, however, so won't be affected by it. Another kill is found by another member of G2 as Alamau trades one out and keeps the numbers even at a 3v3.
Into the last minute now. G2 still looking for their first offensive round. Maybe the last Logic bomb out here from Blur, and Logic probably out the window as this timer continues to dwindle. They're going to have to try and throw it at the site and hope that it sticks. Virtue looking to see if there's anybody straggling around Brown Stairs that he could quickly dispatch of. Opening up the gates for G2, but he's found Volps on the other end. It was a late rotation down Red Stairs to try and come up behind G2, but the shoe was on the other foot. Blur also coming in late as well. All of this could have been potentially fatal to a W7M member, but you can see the remaining units playing close to site over inside of Train as well as Library. Alamau, the downward position. has some semblance of control over the site. This will allow them to find some area to plant, but after Virtue's gone down, they're going to need some serious cover, and the case is actually well within the right of W7M to take, and they will. After that case goes down into their control, the round is theirs as well, all in their ownership, all in their control here on Cafe.
W7M going for a tear on this map here, forcing an early timeout from G2 at arguably the earliest point they realistically could have gone for one here. A 3-0 start for W7M means that it's 3-0 on 0-3 on rounds rather for the G2 roster. They've just not been able to make anything work, especially when it comes to the mid and late round play here. Always someone from W7M able to evade them, get out of their line of sight, and be able to properly rotate around them to shut them down via a clutch or another method here. So it is creating a very tough situation for G2 to properly work themselves around, and as a result of that has led to this very definitive scoreline for W7M, currently leading 3 rounds to none.
Probably a lot to be said from Fabian here. G2 getting a lot done with their openings. There's definitely a chance for them to win these rounds, but W7M are a lot more lethal, a lot more willing to go the extra mile in a few of these situations, whether it be through aggression or just some awkward situations they're throwing at G2. It's working, and that's really what they need to try and game plan around right now. They got to kind of try and work the monkey back into the cage and see if they can try and put a containment around W7M, make it to where they can't be as wily coyote as they want to be.
We're going to see the Frostbats come back out here for the W7M roster as well. This has been a very chaotic late round, oftentimes coming down to just 2 to 3 players, or maybe even less than that. So the Frostbats actually probably have a pretty good chance of finding some effective kills if our evidence from yesterday's games is any credence to that. Away from that, however, G2, a few repicks going to be showing up. For the most part, it is just repositioning a few operators and some very slight change-ups to the roster, so nothing earth-shattering here. We're going to see a Lion finally get swapped in, though, and everything is locked in. It'll be on Doki as well, so going to be trying to play a little bit more into that intel game, trying to lock down these defenders as well. Very much W7M looking to do the same thing with those Frostbats, so let's see whose utility switch-ups ends up being a more effective trade here as the members of G2 once again begin to approach the cafe.
On G2, going to be bringing a few extra pieces to this puzzle, especially with Doki working in onto the Lion. Really love this operator choice here. Fantastic for slowing down, some high-flying plays from the defense, except for things like that. That's pretty immediate, so not really going to be able to help out Virtue on that one. But W7M are manning every single window, every angle possible to try and take it to G2, and it is working flawlessly as of now.
Benja has to be careful here stepping forward. You just saw it a moment ago, the W7M member watching through the drone hole to potentially catch the feet of Benja or anyone else from G2 that tries to lurk past this. Benja, though, has his own plans. He's already worked his way all the way to the top of Whiskey. They try to play through Red 90 here. Members of W7M are in the area, but are they expecting this specific play to unfold here? Takes out the default. Or alert members of W7M would have caught that, and indeed they do. The drone's working their way down through white as well. Also going to reveal the positions of the members from W7M. So neither player has security inside of that fight, but W7M gets scared first. They'll back away. They'll give the room over to G2, and that includes the hatch drop along with it here. So G2 now primed for the execute, but still down a player as they've been unable to make up for the loss of Virtue earlier on in the round.
Round slowing down now. I believe that might have been the clone there from Yana. No, actually, that was the real one. Alamount sprinting over into mining. He's going to stay alive. Blur will be over here as well. And unfortunately enough, the Nitro cell is going to be way off the mark over inside of the red hallway. Not even going to deal a sliver's worth of HP to Blur. So this is going to allow G2 to really start putting, the iron to W7M and making a lot of these positions pretty difficult to play. Benja and the rest of the gang working their way down now down to Whiskey here. Need to get rid of some of these castle barricades and open up some lines of sight to be able to assist themselves.
G2 continuing to put the pressure on, but once again, continuing to run out of time in the process. This has oftentimes been an issue for them, especially when they fall behind with the deficit here. And now they're just going to force the hand. Blur going directly into Freezer with the skeleton key. Takes on a fight versus Julio. Gets some intel about a player to his left and then clips the head off as well. Beautifully done, but the Frostmat strike again, ladies and gentlemen, as G2 still, though, are going to be unscathed by it as they move forward, even bringing that player back from the depths as well. All down to Herds now. He's traded out for one, but he still has 3 more players to knock out and the plant to prevent, which unfortunately won't be able to do. Alamau successfully gets it down onto the ground just as Herds approaches the main kitchen doorway. Does he have what it takes to go for this swing here? These angles are going to be so tight, and more than likely he's going to have to face off against multiple players at once. It's a nigh impossible clutch for Herds, but he's got to bring it out now, otherwise G2 finally will get themselves around on the board, and indeed they shall at the hands of Alamau, claiming the final kill.
A round that was W7M's until Blur and Alamau showed up and decided to quickly sweep it under the rug. That was extremely well done from both of them, especially playing around the Gemini clone from Alamau there, able to get the info from the Valkyrie, playing over behind Bunker. So very well done. That's going to be their very first offensive round, even past the big pickup there from W7M, which has been usually the big spark that they've needed to pick up rounds like this. So very well done from G2 to fight back from a downward position.
W7M, of course, still in front of the situation, still in charge here, but G2 now finally has their feet on the ground. And we'll look to try and deploy that a little bit further, of course, with another successful few pickups of their own. W7M now just rotating through the already picked up sites that they have now unlocked for themselves. Not going to go for the reattempt of the first floor hold. Just back over here into Library. Once again, things went swimmingly on the first attempt here. Going to hope the G2's adaptation to the second run here is not as effective as the adaptation they made for Kitchen. And that they can hopefully still be able to control things here. Some interesting operator picks from W7M as well. The Legion specifically coming out for Julio there just to add that extra bit of intel and trap play to maybe either slow down G2 or, of course, give the sound intel over to W7M when G2 are finally ready to make the push. Aside from that, though, no real surprises here when it comes to at least our defensive operator picks, and for the most part, you can say the same thing for G2s as well. Dokido picking the IQ operator that we don't tend to see all that often anymore, but may find itself useful in this situation here.
Well, G2 worried about the potential of a roam game here from W7M, and I can't necessarily blame them. Blur are going to be working in onto the logic bombs for that case, as well as the air jabs from Virtue to try and lock up some of the pathing that W7M could use to the fullest and try and get some of these big kills here. And the first one's going to come from KZ, actually, as he'll take down Alamau. Looks like it was a longer angle, maybe down the hallway, so he'll get a big kill. Herds will take quite a bit of damage on the other end of things, though, as well as Virtue. Looks like a potential player going pretty high flying there for just a moment, but able to work it out. Herds, back and forth we go here inside of Christmas on the ticket position. This is one that we don't see played too often, but if it's supported correctly, it can be extremely annoying, and you see exactly why.
Drop in through top red has been made by G2. Now the clearance of the second floor can truly begin, but some business needs to be taken care of on the third floor. First, of course, still quite a bit of a presence deployed here by W7M. Just inside of Cigar alone, you've got KZ with a whole horde of Kiba barriers blocking the way. He's not the only one. Still all 5 up and running here for W7M, while G2 is already down 2 of their players. Man, Benja just cannot get away with anything here on the Nook as well. Another motion detector goes off as he tries to sneak in through Heldor. I actually think he might have gotten away with that one, at least in the form of the fact that no one's going to immediately chase him down, but you can't do the same for Virtue, who tries to go for the skylight hop. It's beaten out by JV92 here. Volps into the hallway finds Benja, more than likely playing off of that sound cue from earlier on in the round, leaving just Blur in the equation here now with a 1v5 set before him. The guy is literally not moving at the moment, so I'm just going to let the team chat about this one a bit. Try to use this time as effectively as possible, as all he can really do at this point is bait for some stat pads, and unfortunately won't even be able to get that one. It's a flawless round from W7M as they quickly retake control of the scenario here at 4-1.
Very well done from them. Flawless round from W7M as Cafe well within their control from this position. 4-1 at the current moment and going back downstairs to kitchen. Actually, they're second guessing it. Looks like they want to go up to bar cocktail instead. Either way you slice it, still going to be probably a pretty positive round for W7M, especially given how Volps has been playing so far on this map. It looks to be his domain as he is constantly taking it to the opposition. Currently 2-2, but expect to see a little bit more out of him here. So G2 still have the ability to pick up one round and give themselves a little bit of a cushion for their defensive side. Once this switches up, you definitely do not want to be going into this half 5-1.
Certainly you do not. Well, yes, it's a defensive-sided map. It's not that defensively sided. So G2 need to see something from them here. Otherwise, map 3, for me at least, is going to be all but a certainty if we go into the second half with that much of a deficit into W7M's favor. Alamo with a nice little last-second switch up here, too, is going to add the Glaz into the equation. This combined as well with the fact that we also have the Capital picked up could make for a very nasty formula for the players on W7M to deal with. However, we have seen so many different teams attempt this Glaz setup, and I will be real with you, it very rarely pays off. So let's see if G2 can make a mincemeat of my prediction.
On Volts, it's gone hunting along with herds. I've been able to find the herd though. G2, they've worked their way up the black top side instead. Nobody really home for what they were initially considering. Alamo, don't get too trigger happy now. We've already seen you kill a couple of people on your team, but don't need that going down with Glaz this time around. That would be potentially the worst thing to do with that op. Not only are you killing one of your teammates, but you're also giving up the goods in regards to what op you're using. So looks like we're gonna have some frag grenades dedicated in here. Alamo's gonna have those on himself as well. And also, by the way, Blur the only one with smokes in this scenario. So Blur, or this weight in gold past obviously just staying alive and being a man to plant, really needs to get those smokes down to be able to suss Alamo and what his operator is completely, capable of doing and, well, should be doing.
Members of G2 ready to move in, however, it is not going. Alamo ends up taking himself down with his own pre-cooked frag grenade as he swings in. Such an unfortunate chain of events that it pretty much is the beginning of the end for this round here. Virtue, now the last player standing, and again, not even inside the building yet. So what can he possibly achieve here in the 1v3? Case is still down, and someone got taken out through Skylight as well. G2 just cannot make these attacks work here on Cafe as W7M continue to slap them down time after time again.
Nobody burnt the heaven window. That was the biggest issue. Nobody threw any utility through there. He threw one grenade and then tried to swing on in, and just so happened to be that there was my disc at the bottom of that window. And the timing worked out perfectly for him to blow himself up as the my disc detonated the frag grenade. G2 losing off the back of that, as obviously that was the crux of their execution, that smoke play there to kill out the players inside of Cocktail, but none of it really boding too well for them. So now Virtue, more than likely just going to try and play this out, delay some time here. They're more than likely already considering what's going on defense.
Yep, once again, same as the last round here, nothing that realistically can be achieved from the 1v3 perspective, just for the player still alive, just have some fun, basically play a DM for 30 seconds and let your teammates talk it out while you try to waste as much time as possible here. So not the best half, of course, for G2, given what we had seen occur just back on the last map. Now we'll have to see a massive rebound here. Basically a perfect scoreline for W7M. There we go, Virtue finally gonna get picked off here as W7M is able to lock him down over on attacker side balcony. And that will seal the deal for what could very well be the beginning of the end for this map as well. At 5-1 here. W7M, just 2 successful attacks are all that is going to be needed.
So far, a struggle bus for G2 when it comes to Cafe, and I think that right there, the icing on the presumable cake that Cafe is shaped in for G2. Alamo getting blown up from that frag grenade yet again, and the remaining members of G2 really not having anything to do with this game. Doki completely silent, Blur having a couple of moments here or there, but it's really just nothing to call home about just yet. From the first map into now, you can clearly see that W7M have a different caliber of play, at least on defense, in comparison to G2's offense on this map.
It's gonna be that kitchen start for G2. Once Once again, the very same foundation that we saw deployed by W7M at the beginning of the first half also. A bit of a different flair, though, in terms of the operators that are going to be used here by G2 compared to W7M. W7M wanting to play the bunker quite heavily with things like Goyo canisters and Echo in the first round, whereas G2 seems a little bit more free-flowing with their capability, wanting to extend their presence a bit more, whether that's going to be horizontally or vertically. More so often ending up to be a horizontal extension on this site, but we do see teams try to play up every once in a while as well here. When you look at operators, of course, like the Legion and the Aruni that have been added into the equation for the first go on their defense.
W7M quite considered, or concerned rather, with what is going on around the window play from G2. We know W7M occupying a lot of these different angles in the early round for their defenses, but it doesn't seem to be the same for G2. They want to keep this one a little bit closer to sight, especially since it is on the base level. Makes it a little bit easier if you want to play some areas like Bakery or Coat Check, and that seems to be G2's game plan for now. Nothing really going on the mid or top floor, so that should be easy pickings for W7M if they so choose to go that avenue.
This is a very late reinforcement coming in here now as well to try and pepper back up the wall. Will end up working out. W7M actually not able to grab the Azami before she slams the wall back up there right into the face of these attackers here. But at the same time, that wall is going to be dealt with just as quickly as it was put up. Selma already on top of it. Impact to go through to attempt to stop the second one from breaching. I believe it was a success there, but at the same time, the Keep a Barricade is going to be quickly dealt with. Doki's in a bit of an awkward position here now, having proned under that barbecue there. The second he goes up, he is immediately clipped off by Herds. And once more, W7M have put the right foot forward here to claim the opening kill of the round. G2 is attempting to work towards a flank, but you can see they're not entirely sure of that position here as they try to swing out towards it, over towards Coat Check, and don't really find any presence from W7M that they can action upon just yet.
That's the biggest issue. This might be the hardest part of the entire map to flank because there's no real way to get in behind them. You just have to take the gunfight. You're taking a gunfight via the kitchen wall or the hallway, but either way, it is working out for G2 when it comes to the competition. Finally, an equalizer will come through for Herds. And into the last minute, it's going to be a 3 versus 3. G2 still have a pulse, still have a sign of life. Alamau using that mid floor to the fullest advantage. Julio actually going to die, or rather Virtue dying to Julio via that Claymore. It's going to make things a little bit more complex for them now. W7M pulling ahead. All of that patient play. Benja will also get one back onto his shoulders, though, as well. A little pre-fire here, but this timer is starting to eat at their sides. Alamau has one impact grenade, one hope, one shot, one chance to try and stop this plant from going down. They have the cross dedicated. What happens to this player in Freezer? What say he in his defense? Volps will go down in a flick! Benja does it again! Oh my! On a dime inside of Freezer, quickly taking down both W7M members. And what a round there from Benja Master.
Benja Master on absolute fire today with his spray control. That time on the SMG-11, I believe, as well. They're one of the more difficult ones to try and get a multi-kill inside of that single clip, but he gets the job done anyway. Very well played out by the G2 esports roster here to put their foot down yet again as the second half gets started. More importantly, put some fear into W7M as they seem to be on a rampage prior to this previous round here. Now, we'll have to see if they'll slow things down, try to play things a bit more composed, giving that greater respect over to G2, which in turn could lead to more success for them and a potential comeback to reignite this map a bit more and maybe still keep the hopes of a 2-0 alive.
Now, Volps got his, and now Benji has gotten his comeuppance as W7M. Revenge Tour on for G2 now up against him. They're trying to get back some of these rounds they lost on their offensive side. Gonna send it up top into Bar and Cocktail in a fairly straightforward affair from the defensive perspective, especially given the operator lineup, just trying to slow down W7M, give them some hard looks, whether it be via laser gates or some of those Kiba barriers. But yeah, that's mostly it. Just trying to make it a little bit difficult for W7M to process that top floor and give some advantage over to G2 in these gunfights as well as the time.
KZ and the rest of G2 back out, ready to play yet again here. So we see W7M start to move forward, start to establish those positions upstairs here. We're going to see G2 skip one of the steps that W7M decided to take here earlier on in their half, of course, and a potential lineup early on. And you see that window pop open, and a member of G2 forced to scurry away. Does not want to involve themselves in this position for an extended battle, however. So that's going to be Blur that initially got spotted out, or potentially could have been spotted out from behind that window. Now ends up rotating over towards White to avoid the situation entirely. Benja as well, ready to potentially fend off some of this repel pressure working itself into Cigar. He'll sit back here, currently alone as well, so this is a very precarious situation, but I'll correct myself, Alamau somewhat nearby. Oh, that's a big peek right there, but Alamau making things work regardless. He lines up a second repelled kill now against JV92. Virtue also getting into this. I don't believe anyone from W7M has actually entered the building yet here as well. Only just now starting to see them take these hatch drops, and immediately they are faltering. The case along with them has now gone down to the ground there by New Hatch. Worst case scenario for W7M has been deployed. Alamau even picking one up with the M590 here. Volps is all that remains. He gets one pad kill. And aside from this, though, the round is pretty much over. He has to drop in, and the second he does, there's going to be a member of G2 waiting for him.
Yeah, and that member happens to just be named Alamau as he is awaiting the drop with that shotgun. Doesn't seem like there's going to be too much that happens for Volps here, though, as the sledge is going back down the side of the building. Probably more than likely just going to try and delay some time and allow W7M to use this clock to its fullest advantage, trying to figure out what they want to do for the remaining rounds. They have a lot of opportunities to try and close out this map, so a long road still ahead for G2, a much shorter path considered for W7M, but that doesn't mean that G2 can't get this done. W7M, see if they can potentially get a push here. Finally, it'll be Benja to seal the deal, drops down the hatch into the red hallway, and G2 will shore up this score line 5-3.
G2 starting.
Yes, you did, Doki. You did peek a hatch in a 5v1. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And he immediately died as well, but I still love the, I respect it. Honest to God, I probably would have done the same thing. It was like, why not? Why not? But to be fair, if you do that with like your friends in ranked, that right there is just the first domino and you losing the round. Because you no longer have a say in what happens. You're just like, oh, it'll be fine. I'm sure everybody will figure out. There's 4 people alive. And then that first round from Volts happens. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe next time I won't go peek the hatch.
G2 on a bit of a comeback run here now. 2 rounds to go to equalize us at 5-2 all. Back down onto the second floor after they have found success on both their first floor kitchen hold and the third floor cocktail hold over in the library here now to see if they can complete the full set, go for the full run, where they only need 1 more after that one to tie things up. Doing a fantastic job of keeping up pace here with W7M, showing us a very defended-sided map. Just a drastic comparison to what we had back over on Bank, of course, where aside from G2, things were very, very attacker-sided throughout the course of that play on there, where G2, of course, would eventually take it because of their dominance on both sides.
It's going to be a mirror strategy here for G2 inside of the bathroom, alongside some castle barricades and a few traps, as well as some mute jammers. Locking up that top floor, making it a little complex for W7M to try and work their way through. Don't have the best hard breach options here. In fact, the only hard breach that they do have happens to be on Julio and Capital. So more than likely not going to be able to deal with the mirror windows all that well, minus using the tactical bolts out of him. There's no real hard breach advantage that they have coming into this, like a Habana or maybe an Ace.
KZ, of course, just doing the usual hatch work upstairs. Nothing too fantastic to write home about here. Both teams locked in position, waiting for the execute to follow through right now. Things will remain quiet as long as that is the case, as long as W7M does not have the full confidence to swing themselves into it here. KZ getting that slight peek at Benja. His like elbow popping out there. He's able to get a few shots off onto it. Is given the opportunity to do so again, but it's caught in the midst of a nade toss, so can't follow it through this time. Benja escapes into a different part of the map here, and still no kills have been found. Nades go in though, and there we go. Great bank from Hertz to pick one up. But look at Alamau hiding below the windowsill. Nearly gets the revenge against Hertz. Thankfully, he quickly repels away from that one and saves his own life for now.
So very close. All of these players trying to abuse every angle in the books. You can see 2 players trying to use the drone hole on white top side and get this kill. Herds might actually end up getting this with the frag grenade if he backs up, but he will not. Fortunate for Virtue there, as he more than likely had no idea that was quickly going to be an unplayable position. Speaking of unplayable, has to be unplayable or feel unplayable up against Alamau right now, as he's surely hit his stride, John. 12-4. The second kill for him, first kill inside of this, as he just dealt that considerable damage to Hertz earlier in the round.
Herd still waiting on the outskirts of Heldor to see if anything will present itself from G2. G2 has gone all but silent here now. As we've entered the final minute of play, they do not need to give anything away, so they will not be even attempting to. As W7M seems to be frozen up once again on this attacking lineup as well. We've seen this in previous rounds where they're just not able to get enough of a utility spread out, or not able to take the appropriate position, and just end up going for a few guest pushes, which will end up leading to their deaths. This time, though, it's a bit more well-formulated. Volps and Julio able to deal with the upstairs presence. G2 never peeling that back. Virtue stealing one back on the exchange, though, as he finally gets the finisher off onto Herds. Volps will get hit from some utility, and Blur gets away with one, but he can't escape fully. The trade comes in. Everything falls to Virtue, but time now plays into his favor. The scope, though, is not going to play into his favor at all inside of that angle. Julio, I believe, shuts it down for W7M, and they have finally thrusted themselves onto map point.
Looking much better that time around. Not nearly as strong of a showing into the later portion of that from G2, as W7M finally able to get the best of them and make this a much more difficult scoreline to look at from their perspective. 6-3, G2 needing a perfect rotation of sites. Definitely doable on a map like Cafe, but they cannot have a singular mistake, and we saw just how easily W7M can trip up G2 throughout this series so far. Quite a few of these players able to get around G2 in a myriad of different circumstances.
So, do or die time here for G2 now, as it has to be all perfect from this point forward. W7M, thankfully able to rely on their earlier successes in the game, have not fallen victim to the early half play from G2 just yet here. Still could end up in that position, though, as G2 gave us some very convincing rounds earlier on. Their defensive half, they can now rotate back into those very same sites, starting out here with Kitchen, of course. It's time to see if they are ready to test their mettle and work their way back up to that 6th round here in terms of operator selections. Nothing hugely surprising going to be coming up from either team here. Very much an expected fare for this map. Blur immediately going to work for G2, though, shutting down JV92 and all the flank watch that would have come from the Nomad with it.
Hard look there for W7M initially, but doesn't mean that they can't do something with this round. We saw a very similar start the last time, and they were still able to win it out. But G2 definitely not wanting this one to slip through the cracks. It really looks like they want to try and solve this problem and get it done here on Cafe. Do not want to head off to Theme Park for that 3rd map. But since that pickup of JV92 as well as KZ, it is dead stopped W7M. They're all just looking for these rotations now to see if they can potentially pick up an easy kill, initially looking in towards Doki there in Bakery.
W7M continuing to look for options here to try and make up the deficit, trying to see if they can scout out any lone members of G2 that may be vulnerable or unsupported in any way, shape, or fashion they can use to slowly slingshot their way back into the round. Things not panning out, though, as they attempt to go for a bit of a play inside of Christmas. Will not work out. Blur ends up getting hit slightly, but now you're going to see the nades bounce back onto Volps. Downs him entirely. Not out for the count yet, but Herds is, as he tries to go for another nade toss. And wow, G2 just snapped the jaw shut right there as well as soon as the nade kill comes through, and make sure that W7M have zero chance to fight back there in the late round. Entering round 11 here, where G2 just have 2 to go now.
Virtue was so locked in that he didn't even see Fabian's hand in his peripheral vision. Fabian had to start waving. He was like, hello, can you see me? Hey, good job, man. Good round. Yeah, all right. Well, you got to feel for him as well. I understand Virtue's position there. You know, you got 2 rounds to go. You're trying to force overtime here. We got to work, boss, okay? I got things to do, people to see, people to shoot. And, well, there's more shooting to be done here in about 40 seconds. We've got a lot more boring kill time, or time to kill, rather, here for the remainder of this prep phase. But G2, very quick to light a fire there, you know, when it considered round 10, and taking that pretty handedly off the back of their efforts. So transitioning that over into this, what will W7M switch up? It looks like they want to try and provide more flank utility coming into this, making it to where G2 can't get nearly as aggressive on a lot of different routes. routes, whether it be via air jabs that they'll more than likely put on quite a few door frames, or have some of those track stingers where they'll have to give up a piece of utility or potentially shoot themselves a path through on the stairwell. But actually, it looks like the gridlock not going to work her way in. Instead, Julia's going to switch off and go over to Habana instead at the very last moment. So excommunicate that. It'll just be the Nomad that we've been seeing time and time again from both of these squads.
You already have the Nomad, which is like a better version of Gridlock's flank watch anyway, and I think Gridlock is more so used for interior site reinforcement more than anything.
Stairwells.
Yeah,
that's
stairwells.
her. If you want to know what Gridlock does, stairs, and she does them pretty damn well. So, yeah.
All right, well, let's see here. W7M, like I said, not bringing her to the table. Still going to have flank watch, though, in the form of the Nomad. And alongside of that, still getting plenty of intel from KZ's pick over onto the Lion there, too. Just trying to spam that one out, especially considering the site that we are going to be playing onto. G2 members might be pretty mobile here, so wanting to try and catch them out in the midst of those rotations and punish them, if at all possible. Might be quite difficult to do so, of course, considering the very angle-focused nature of this map from the attacker's perspective from time to time, but we will have to wait and see what can potentially bear fruit. Herds sees the opening inside of Cigar, so we'll swing in and take that for the team. The rest of W7M should be able to form themselves up on the third floor relatively soon and begin the process of clearing out the hold from G2 here.
All things considered, pretty interesting that neither one of these teams has actually dealt any damage to each other, and we're halfway through this round. It has been hotly contested in the first minute and a half from both of these squads, but now W7M is crunch time. They know it's only one round away, and as long as they play their game, they stick to the strategy, they'll more than likely end up on the winning end of this map. And then they can more than likely win out this best of 3 as well on Theme Park. Herd's looking to see if bathroom will be clear, and it will. G2 a little farther back inside of the hidey hole of the top floor, more towards the freezer space. Benja also going to have a nitro cell primed here, but the wrap now coming from W7M, trying to apply some pressure on the white stairs. And they're actually going to end up working this one out. KZ will go down, nice nitro cell, take out another, and it's also going to kill Blur. Virtue, anybody on G2 just really willing to put their teammates down as martyrs and just try and win out the round via that. Blur a little bit too close to the explosion, and apparently not wearing his PPE, so he will definitely get blown sky high, although G2 is still well within their right to take the round.
So everything falls down now to the final 3 members of W7M to attempt to swing their way into it, as Benja is forced back into the depths of libraries. He's immediately flashed out. W7M trying to take that hell control for themselves. 20 seconds to make this work for W7M as well. So they are quickly running out of both room and timing to make this one work. Alamau begins the crunch. Julio tries to open it back up a little bit here with the push into library. Second angle going to work its way into this, but it's not enough. G2 still shutting it down, and they'll take us to the final round of regulation.
Very well done from G2. The cadence out of them. Respecting W7M's pacing, not trying to push it to its fullest, you know, not jacking the accelerator through the floor and just trying to pull around out of their hat. Instead, laying back on the strategy, using these lineups and their teamwork to their fullest advantage to be able to take down W7M. It's looking pretty good for them at the current moment, but the same can't be said for W7M. That's 2 rounds in a row now have looked a little troublesome, and this could be the moment that G2 is able to finally break them. If they force this to overtime, we are going to need to see a new level of resilience out of W7M.
Absolutely the case. That's been the problem here for W7M is, once more, they just have not had that capability to hold on outside of the defensive half that we saw them play out at the beginning of this map, where the map advantage played heavily into their favor. They had momentum rolling, but it seems that momentum has all but entirely collapsed against them here. So we will have to wait and see if they can bring it back, if they can muster something. This is their last chance to end it. Keep in mind, folks, they started this half at 5-1 in their favor, and G2, very impressively, has brought it all the way back now, adding 4 more rounds themselves, and about to add the 5th if they can win out this last defense upstairs on the 3rd floor.
All right, well, G2 one round away from overtime, and as you said, John, it's all going down on this top floor. We either have OT or we're going to a break, and we're headed to Theme Park. That's all that is in the cards for us, and that makes things pretty exciting, especially with some of the different op choices that we're getting here on W7M. We have the Twitch in for Julio. Going to be interesting to see if he is running the F2. I haven't seen it yet this tournament. Herds is going to be on the, I almost said Amaru there. Oh my gosh, why am I blanking on this one's name? Is it a Rooney? It's not a Rooney.
Wait, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about what Herd's playing.
Oh,
Yana. Yeah, I was blanking there for a split
second. I had like five Herds on the line.
I was like, what are you talking about? That's not a Rooney. No.
Well, there is a Rooney. I thought you were talking about it.
Yes.
That's the one I get confused on usually, is a Rooney and a Mario.
The AR names in rank.
Yeah, there's a couple of them now.
Yeah, absolutely. But yes, indeed, Yana working its way in here for Herds. Also have the info game as well. And KZ was having a little bit of a more interesting choice there for a split second, but he'll work his way back over to the Sledge, which even though Sledge did end up getting a little nerf inside of the 3 armor change that he has gotten, he's still as important as ever. He's really the one that can accomplish his job the best when it comes to working angles from a downward position through soft breach.
Setting Claymore.
Well, W7M, it has all come down to this final push into the 3rd floor. Can you seal the deal? Can you overwhelm the Matrix from G2? At the moment, things are remaining quite quiet, and they often have been for that first minute or two. Just a lot of walls being shot at more than anything going on across the map right now. We do confirm the Rooney's position from Virtue there, a little bit deeper into Cocktail, so we'll have confirmation of that when they are ready to make the push forward, and may even be able to try and throw some bolts over in Virtue's way. That is the current intention. Virtue just blind as a bat, unfortunately, as that nade rolls in. The flash, I think, still fully affecting him, and nowhere to really go, even if he wanted to try and move from that position. So Virtue just had to sit there and unfortunately take the L on this round, as W7M decided to commit a good half their utility to it. Now the hop has come forward from Volps, however. He'll take the leap on his own, trying to go for a plant behind it as well. KZ so far supporting it well, but Benja trades out that repelled position. Volps, though, still able to successfully sneak off the plant, and now back out the window where we're going to see these repelled positions supported. Alamau is the only one left from G2, and W7M are sending us to a map 3.
What a round there from W7M. Quickly able to deal with the cocktail positions of G2. Breaking down everything on that top floor. And luckily enough, folks, speaking of breaking things, we're going to send you guys to a quick break so that we can get into this last map as quickly as possible. We'll see you in a minute.